Hey, greetings everyone, my friends. I want to talk to you a little bit about this big eclipse that's coming up here in mid-October. We have a big solar eclipse passing right through the United States in mid-October, and then there'll be another big one in the spring. And this is an annular eclipse. It's a ring of fire eclipse, so it happens on the new moon. When the sun and the moon are conjunct, and in this case, close nearby will be Ketu, the south node of the ecliptic. And so the eclipse is happening by either Rahu or Ketu, the head of the dragon, so to speak, and the tail of the dragon. They're called Chayagrahas. They're shadow planets that you don't see Rahu and Ketu unless it's an eclipse. It's the only time you see Rahu and Ketu. And this eclipse is happening in what's called Chitra Nakshatra. And this is the part of the sky that Chitra straddles both the end of Virgo into the early part of Libra. And this is happening in the sun and moon will be in the latter part of Virgo, and Ketu's hanging right across over in Libra, and it's going to cause an eclipse in that way. So it's right on the border there, but all of it takes place in the lunar mansion called Chitra, which means, well, its symbol is a shining jewel. Its meaning of Chitra is like a work of art or multicolored. And its deity, all of these lunar mansions, they have a symbol, they have a meaning, they have a deity that rules over them, and they have a Shakti, a power. And so what I like to do in one way, in an effort to kind of harmonize with whatever the energy is where the eclipse is taking place, is to reflect on these things and to think about their mythologies, and then also plan my activities to, at least to a certain extent, around that. And in this case, the shining jewel, this is the name of our immersion, which is happening right over, it's a whole eclipse retreat. I'll tell you about that a little later. The meaning of this is like a work of art or multicolored, or the bright. The symbol is a shining jewel. So people who have important focal points of their horoscope that are in this area of the sky, Chitra, say like the moon especially, but also could be the ascendant or the lord of the ascendant. They said that they will benefit, everyone benefits from, for instance, gemstones, but people with strong Chitra placements may benefit even more from wearing gemstones. So if that's you, that's kind of a cool thing, right? If that is you though, like say moon or ascendant, that means this eclipse is happening on a focal point of your chart, and it would be particularly important for you to plan some activities that are going to harmonize with the really more beneficial side of the eclipse versus the potential challenging and stress-causing and destructive expression of an eclipse, because it's always both. And generally speaking, the things that are great to do during an eclipse are to do things like meditate, to relax, to be reflective and introspective, to journal, to do yoga practice, to do the things that are going to connect you really into what your life is all about on a more substantive level. Then an eclipse can be quite powerful and quite helpful. On the other hand, if we kind of go as business as usual and our pursuits are more extroverted, less introspective, then eclipses can be quite challenging and quite stressful. So it's not a day where we want to have a lot of activities or a lot of things that are going to require us to be extremely mentally and emotionally engaged, especially within our relationships. And it's not a day for big decision making on the material level and these types of things, but it's a phenomenal day for meditation practice. It's a phenomenal day to study a dharma, to practice a dharma. And so the deity for the Chitra Nakshatra is called Savitar, or Vishwakarma he's later called, and he's the celestial craftsman, the celestial architect. He creates the weapons of the god. So here's where you get into a little bit of the mythology around it. So you also, on a geopolitical level, we hope that this eclipse doesn't have too dramatic effect on the potential war activities that are happening on the earth right now and in different countries, and that the leaders of those countries are able to see a bigger vision that doesn't require so much suffering. We can hope, and we can pray, and we can hold our space like that. Definitely we can. But this nakshatra does have some war mythology that is associated with, so it's fair game in terms of thinking about what could be catalyzed in it. But of course that's not all. Vishwakarma is also the architect of like celestial vehicles. So things like our vehicles are also something to be mindful around. The eclipses bring unsettled energy. It's not bad energy necessarily, but it is destabilized energy. So if you're using that in a meditative mode where you're destabling old patterns and narratives of the subconscious mind that cause us suffering, those are naturally being destabilized. If you do that in a meditative way, it'll make you blissful. And if you want to participate in this eclipse retreat with us, that's exactly what we'll be doing, not just on the eclipse day, but starting Wednesday before it, Thursday, Friday, Saturday the eclipse day, finishing at lunchtime on Sunday. That's how to use an eclipse. And to know you're going to get into that desirable part of this thing and use it to your advantage, and I think you'll have a beautiful experience. But in any case, as long as you're doing something that is a little more just mindful, just being mindful is the best during these times. So Vishwakarma, he signifies craftsmanship of all kinds. He's also said to shape the bodies of women and men in preparation for marriage. So this nakshatra has to do with beauty, art. It has to do with the beauty of the human form, but forms of all type, and colorful things. So it's very lovely. It's very artistic part of the sky as well. You get really wonderful people that have placements in this nakshatra. For instance, I think of Jerry Garcia with his ascendant in Chitra nakshatra as the Libra side of it, as the transcendent artist. What a shining jewel he is. I think of Joseph Campbell with his ascendant in the Virgo side of Chitra. Talk about a celestial archetype, architect Joseph Campbell, taking all the mythologies of all the different traditions and cultures around the world and showing how they're the same thing. Totally Chitra nakshatra energy. So this is a very cool thing, I think, to think about and to reflect on, and it's going to be a very important part of our lives because we have this big eclipse that's happening, solar ring of fire eclipse happening in mid-October. Then in the spring you get another eclipse that's also, both of them are crossing through the United States, which is where I live, so it has my attention even more so. And so the first one, this one in October, will start kind of on the west coast and cross down, but parts of it will be visible all the way to the northeast. And then in the spring you have the one coming up from the bottom, crossing, both of them cross through Texas, and then go up into the northeast on the second one. So this is these are often triggers for different things in our lives, both on a societal level, but also on our personal lives. And if you know your Vedic horoscope, then you can know where this eclipse is happening in your chart. So if for instance you're Virgo ascendant, it's happening right in your first house. And if you're a Libra ascendant, it's happening partly in your first house with Ketu, but mostly in your 12th house. And you would look at it that way. And so if you know your chart, you just look where Chitra is in your chart, and then you'll find out which house and therefore what domain of your life this eclipse is taking place. And that will be insightful. But no matter where this eclipse is taking place, doing some great meditation practice during this time can't be understated on how helpful that can be. Vishwakarma, he's the maker of both. I'm taking this from the book of James Kelleher, has a great Vedic astrology book called, I believe, Path of Light, it's called. You can find that on his website. It says he's the maker of both the thunderbolt and the chalice of Soma. So Soma is the chalice of bliss. The thunderbolt makes me think of like the Lord Shiva and his Tershila. And Vishwakarma is the celestial craftsman who is architecting these things. He has the power to give both long life and prosperity. You see why it's nice to kind of pay attention to these ideas when there's eclipse happening in that part of the sky, so it gives you a kind of directionality and focal point for your mind, so you can functionally get into the higher energy, higher octave, desirable expression of the eclipse energy, as opposed to the more difficult parts. He gives the shape of the male and female I talked about. He rules over the shaping of the embryo in the womb, something to think about if that's an important part of your life right now. He rules over all forms. He sometimes envies and admires the skill of other celestial craftsmen. All of these things, they're not narrow in how you use them in astrology, because even if somebody has a strong focal point, say moon, ascendant, or possibly some other planet in this part of the sky, then even like themes of envy within certain contexts will show up in their lives. You'll see, and that is very interesting and very cool, because not that envy shows up is so cool, but that does show that these mythological kind of motifs and ideas show up in our lives, and then we get to transform them, and it gives us insights on how our lives are also mythological and are very much in the spirit of Joseph Campbell, A Hero's Journey. And so this is Chitra Nakshatra. The link, if you want to join us for this incredible retreat, we're broadcasting it from anywhere in the world you can take it. It is a eclipse retreat that starts on a Wednesday evening and ends on a Sunday afternoon. The eclipse is on the Saturday. We want that whole time to be able to do this, because it's not that we just want to get going on the eclipse day. We want to kind of be in that magical space already by the time the eclipse arrives. And even if you can't be there live with each of the sessions, if you join this thing, you get all the on-demand lifetime access to it all. It's not a course that you can only use on the eclipse. This course is called The Shining Jewel, A Shining Jewel. It's a Kundalini yoga experience. It's a Dharma experience. If you've ever done any of our immersions retreats, you already know what's up. These are in my opinion, at Life Force Academy, the single most coolest thing that we do, and most transformative thing we do for sure. Everybody's invited. Link is here. Chitra Nakshatra. Blessings to everybody on this upcoming eclipse season.